So it's a very familiar faces gathering, as some of us have been here exactly on the same stage last year. And Gili, I wanted to maybe start and say, the fact that you're doing this shows how this conference is meaningful and resilient, so thank you so much for having us. And it's a great opportunity to speak about ClimaTech these days, and we always, I think, are affected profoundly from ClimaTech when it comes to our daily life. And I think we're in a very interesting spot on the hype cycle. As you know, Trump just got re-elected. I think the future of some regulation, some ESG is definitely going to define a lot of what and how we will do business, or in our portfolio company will do business. So I brought the smartest people that I know to be on stage. So let's start maybe with a quick round of introductions. Olaf, we're going to start with you. I'm not sure you see us, but hi.
Hey, good morning, and thanks for having me. Unfortunately, I cannot be with you now in Tel Aviv, but it's a pleasure and a privilege to be on this panel. So I'm a partner at Zintenus. It's a purely focused venture capital fund on food tech. So we invest in the transition of the food system to more sustainability and health, and actually working on food security for generations to come.
Perfect. Klaus?
Hi everyone, I'm Klaus Hausmann. I'm a partner at Grant Thornton's advisory practice. I focus on helping companies work around the circular economy, but also in the wider scheme of things in attracting new capital, doing transactions, selling themselves, anything around, especially startups and venture capitalists.
What?
Hi, my name is Ohad Maman. I'm a partner at Future Energy Ventures. It's a VC based in Berlin. We invest in software solutions mainly, so digital asset-light business models, in three main focus areas, what we call future energy, future cities, and future technologies. Essentially, it means that we're looking for software solutions that can support energy transition, decarbonization of buildings, green mobility, and basically any technology that has a significant decarbonization impact. Series A, B investors, global fund based in Europe, but also have teams in the US and Israel.
Perfect.
Great. My name is Achim Hartig. I am working with Germany Trade and Invest, and you heard already about lots of the regions in Germany that are the subnational investment promotion agencies. We are responsible for the whole of Germany, so we tell you everything about the regions that are not Cologne and not Hamburg. So we're covering everything, and we cover all industries. We have representatives worldwide, and our focus is definitely technological advancements in the German economy. And I'm happy to be here today.
Cologne, Hamburg, Vienna, Berlin. If any of you in the end can share their favorite city, I think it's a really nice trend today. So with no further ado, let's start. Achim. I think from the bird eye view, you are positioned really well to, on one hand, understand the different underground streams and trends that are happening at the moment, mostly in Germany, but in Europe, and on the other hand, to understand innovation. What are the key trends that you see right now that entrepreneurs needs to take into account when they're building the next company?
Well, thank you for the question. That's very interesting, and I like the fact that we are more talking about Europe here rather than about different nations, because what we have to tackle these days is not a national task to save the climate. It's something which addresses international value chains. So just as an introduction, companies are pretty agnostic about what kind of name the state has or the nation. They're more interested about the strengths of regions, how they can build up their value chains. And since we're here about ClimaTech, I would rather like to emphasize that we are in the situation, a pretty unique situation where less the market itself is a driver with its forces for attracting investments, but rather regulation and law in the European Union is creating markets at this moment. You might like it or not, but that's currently the case, and there are huge opportunities. And if you're asking about the trends which are currently happening, is probably that for Germany and also for many other countries, we are trying to achieve economic resilience. So I'm going to break this down for you, which means we are trying to be self-sustaining in, let's say, critical raw materials. And we were talking about critical raw materials, we are talking about circular economy. When we're about circular economy, we're talking about recycling, for example, of batteries. We are talking about recycling of waste. And if we're talking about recycling in general, we need sensor technology, we need AI-driven robotics, we need AI-driven process management tools to efficiently select the resources we have to make it, to feed them back into the cycle. This is where software comes in, and this is where the combination of software and industrial avant-garde comes in. And when I speak about industrial avant-garde, this is something where Germany is very strong, because in no other country than in Germany, probably you will have the opportunity to combine your innovation, your innovative thinking, and your avant-garde products and services with a strong industrial heritage and a strong product excellence which you have an industrial base. Circular economy is a trend. Photovoltaics is a trend where we are going to double our capacities until 2030. Wind energy is a trend where we're also doubling our capacity until 2030. And I could break this down for you today at another point anywhere so that you can see what kind of advantages are in there. Just one last thing. Venture capital investments in ClimaTech in Germany are, with 13% of all venture capital investments, ways larger than, for example, in the US. And you should know that.
Thank you so much for the very comprehensive answer and for not mentioning AI once in trends. So great. It does affect our sector AI as well significantly, and I hope we'll have time to talk about it, but you're going to hear a lot about it today, so let's wait with that. I realize I forgot to introduce myself. So my name is Esche Lippmann, a venture partner with Extantia Capital. We are a Berlin-based VC, raised a 200 million euro fund to invest in seed and A ClimaTech solutions. So all of ClimaTech excluding food and ag, and I would love to speak with all of you if you find this relevant. And because we are not doing food and ag, I think the next person to speak with is Olaf. Olaf, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
So the food tech obviously is clearly evolving and changing over time. We know that the recent years has been extremely interesting, both for the good and for the bad. And I wanted to ask you, what do you see as the major trends that are shaping the European food tech market at the moment?
Yeah, so I think the market has been quite volatile, particularly with some of the hype curve that you mentioned earlier. I think the consumer preference, let's start with that, is in our favor. So the trend is our friend. In Europe, across all Europe, and particularly in Germany, demand for plant-based products and alternative protein products continues to grow. That's not necessarily the case in the United States right now, but in Europe it is. And the same is true for functional. So we have still a lot of headroom for growth for functional food compared to the US market. So consumers are really looking for the good product. That I think is a change in 2024 compared to years before. They're looking at the label. They will not buy a product that has ingredients that are problematic. Is it too much sugar, salt, or chemical ingredients? So finding the natural alternative is one of the key learnings, I think, out of 2023 and 2024. And the good news is it's possible. Most often it's possible by recombining old technology like traditional fermentation with new ingredients like mushrooms or the roots of mushrooms. And we are fascinated by that because these innovations not only are tasty, are yummy, are healthy, but they're also organic. And they can be done with much lower capex than what we thought like 3 or 4 years ago when we talked about all protein. One thing to add, which I believe is going to be the big boost for food tech innovation, is the awareness that food security is not a given. So supplying enough food, not only protein, but food in general, to the generations to come is going to become a problem by the end of the decade, early of next decade. And that's why you see governmental intervention, particularly in Asia right now, in Asia Pacific, making sure that food security is supported by governmental programs. I think we will need to see something similar across the world, quite frankly. And Europe is ideally positioned to take advantage of that because Europe is, the leader in food worldwide. It's the biggest single market with 1.2 trillion value. It is a market that exports basically 20% of all goods from Europe into the world. And if you look into the institutes and the universities we have in Europe that have been researching on food innovation for decades, for generations, we have a wealth of unexploited ideas. So therefore, I remain bullish, period.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing that insight. So food security supported by the government, as Olaf just mentioned, critical infrastructure support, as Achi mentioned, that brings a lot of maybe good, maybe bad government support. And I think, Ohad, the next question should be to you. So regulation, and specifically regulation around energy, is definitely something that entrepreneurs in our sector need to have in mind when they address the next solution and to make sure that they have the right product market fit. How do you see those factors being integrated into Future Energy Ventures portfolio companies?
Yeah, so I think if there's one thing that Europe is not lacking is regulation. Usually, it's not a scarce resource, let's say. But I think that there are definitely also, as Achi mentioned, I mean, there are opportunities with regulation, and there are several examples where regulations can really provide tailwinds for companies, even companies like ours that are focused more on software solutions. Just last month, the EU announced the Clean Industrial Deal. That's a framework that's supposed to mobilize 100 billion euros into EU-made clean manufacturing. So the focus there would be on speeding up the rollout of renewable energy, increasing electrification and energy efficiency. So if you think about it, renewables, that's a proven, well-established technology. There might be additional innovation and developments in the future. That's your job. But at the moment, there's definitely an opportunity for digital platforms to really support a faster and more efficient deployment. So think of platforms that provide better design, procurement, installation of renewables, and of course using software for better energy efficiency in industrial settings. In Germany, smart metering, that's a huge topic right now. New law that mandates, as of 2025, mandates the installation of smart meters for different types of consumers and generators. And we're talking about going from, 2%, something like that, coverage today to 95% by 2030. So that unlocks huge, I think, opportunities for data analytics and energy management, just massive amounts and quality of data on energy consumption and management that we don't have today. Maybe last example on built environment, the European Energy Performance in Buildings Directive, the EPBD, recently updated, also setting up huge, very ambitious goals. Let's say all new buildings must be net zero by 2030, setting minimum performance standards for buildings, which means that many buildings would need to be now renovated with energy-focused retrofits, and that's also a very complex problem where software solutions can really support. And we do see a wave now of software solutions in Europe tackling exactly that problem and tapping into that opportunity of basically analyzing these projects and providing recommendations on the best courses of action for renovations.
Thanks, Ohad. I feel like we can have a proper panel that will last this whole day about this specific topic. To wrap up with last question, Klaus, pleasure to have you with us this year. So both Ohad and myself are working for Article 9 SFDR Green Fund, which means that we have very strict ESG consideration we need to take into account. Olaf, maybe you are as well. When we invest into new companies, how do you see ESG consideration shaping not only from the regulatory side, but actually more of the opportunity side for different stakeholders and companies in Europe these days?
So, obviously, as was mentioned already before, regulation these days drives a lot of the orientation towards ESG considerations, and we're seeing some change there to come from obviously across the pond, but also within Europe, as you may have heard, and for those who haven't heard yet, take a look at the omnibus policy change that is underway in the EU right now, which aims to streamline and also relax the regulations that have become a little bit more too cumbersome at this point. So I think the organizations will have to monitor very closely those developments and obviously adapt to those. There's currently two aspects in my mind. One is regarding the customers you deal with when you are active in Europe. The other is the investor side when you do business in Europe, or when you want to seek for funds, for example, from VC funds, or you are a startup, look for additional funding. You need currently to consider ESG considerations, both from the reporting directive as well as from the publicity perspective, which may be relaxed, but currently they are the norm. And what I can only recommend to companies is to fully embrace the ESG or the taxonomy that drives the categorization of everything you do as a company from an ESG perspective. And with that, simply when you embrace these and integrate them into your systems, you're also able to adapt them as we go along. I think that is the recommendation we can currently make.
So if I'll take your answer and maybe bundle up all of the answers of the panelists on stage, I think it's very clear that despite you heard the word instead of AI regulation maybe too many times on this stage, it has to be taken into account as an opportunity and not as a risk. Yes, it requires a lot of nuances and understanding, deeping dive both to taxonomy of ESG or alternatively to understand the new bill. But the fact that Europe is keeping itself committed to investing in green industries with the right bill, tailored bill, unlike some changes in Northern America governance, I think that's a really good sign for all of our portfolio companies. Before we go to the very last fast question for all five of us, anyone from the audience has one question? Do we have one time for one question?
My question is, how do we handle the dependency regarding renewable energies from, for example, China? Like PV panels, 99% come from China, and if China decides not to deliver PV to the world anymore, this is a big also supply chain challenge, also rare earth metals, and I mean, we come from dependent from oil to be dependent on other raw materials. So how do we handle that?
I could try to answer this. At this point, we really have an overcapacity of solar panels in Europe, which would provide building up Europe for some years still. And these are Chinese panels predominantly, but I think we have time to build up resilience over here. Connected with that, just one sentence, we have been mentioning the Net Zero Industry Act also, which creates huge market opportunities, and it entails that 40% of net zero technologies have to be produced in Europe in the coming years. That will force building up more capacities, and in general, photovoltaics, there are many European producers that are way more energy efficient than Chinese producers from that part. So we might have a chance of compensating that.
I would add that to the degree that, to your point, that Chinese manufacturers would, against all odds, not want to sell anymore into Europe. I mean, they make money this way, right? Let's keep that in mind. The European economy, the technology availability is here, is in Europe, and would be ramped up again because it comes into the money. It's a very simple commercial aspect that I think your question should be answered that way. We need to maintain the ability to react. I think that is what I would say.
We don't have much time, but the last sentence I would add that by regulation, like the CBAM, the cross-border adjustment mechanism, actually I think Europe positioned itself very smartly to give a carrot and a stick to greener solutions. And I think therefore, because it already set ahead of times and Europe is going towards that direction, I think it's a clear sign that the industry already got accustomed to, and therefore I don't perceive personally that we have a shortage in several of the key feedstocks that are important to Europe. We don't have much time, so I'll ask one of you maybe to chime and say maybe the most important tip for entrepreneurs in ClimaTech to succeed in 2025. If any one of you wants to answer that.
I can try. I would say sustainability is important. It's not going to be enough. And what I mean by that is that when you're building your solution, make sure that it has also an independent, strong financial and business value proposition in addition to the sustainability aspects. I mean, by no means do I mean that you need to abandon your ClimaTech entrepreneurs. That's what you're doing. But really make sure that it's not just the right environmental decision for the customer, it's just a straightforward, the right business decision. So I think that.
Anyone else, quickly?
I couldn't agree more.
Time's up.
Apparently our time's up, although we got 2 minutes grace from Gili. But let's wrap the panel up. First of all, to all of the speakers, Olaf, thank you for joining remotely. Klaus, Oad, Achim, thank you so much for sharing insights. We're sticking here around for more discussion about this topic, and I truly think that Europe is in a way a quite stable foundation for startups in our sector. We don't have all of the money in the world, but it's definitely a place to be and do business in. Gili, thank you for the opportunity, and please come to stage.